Hey, in this episode, we're going to be jumping over to an interview that I just did with Tim Draper. Now, if you don't know who Tim is, he's not only one of the world's most prominent venture capitalists, making early investments in things like Hotmail, Skype, Tesla, but he's also a huge fan and driving force of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. So over the past month or two, as cryptocurrencies have been in this bear market, I've actually been doing a bit of traveling and been making investments in new startups and companies that are raising additional rounds. So I plan on doing some videos in the near future showing you what I'm investing in and where I think certain markets are headed. But in this episode, I'm really excited to just share a few minutes of a conversation that I had with Tim out at his offices in Silicon Valley, where I spent a week at the Draper offices because Tim put on his first ever basically week-long blockchain conference that was really geared towards corporate executives, and there were people from the US, China, really all over the world, and Tim was basically teaching them how to incorporate blockchain technology into their existing business models, which I think is just really exciting. So in this interview, we talk about the future of blockchain technology and how governments are changing, and how Tim thinks that governments are actually going to have to compete now for mental capital, for real capital, and how we're just in a really pivotal moment in time. And we'll talk about current regulations, ICOs, and Tim has some very strong opinions about regulations and where he thinks that's going to head. And he also gives a little bit of advice to entrepreneurs and investors in this space. So without further ado, let's jump right over to it. What is it that just keeps you up every day or gets you up excited?
Well, right now, the thing that's really driving me is Bitcoin and the blockchain because of what it can do for society. All of a sudden, geographic borders are disappearing. And there's this new concept that I've been playing with, and that is that governments have kind of two purposes. One's terrestrial based, where there are borders, and one is virtual, where there are not borders. And business is really out there in the virtual space. And the terrestrial thing is like, where are you going to build a building? Where's the highway coming through? That kind of thing. And people have to sort of help plan that. And the society, the local people who live there are going to want to have a hand in that. But a lot of governments is like safety and insurance and that kind of thing. And you can do all your medical insurance on the blockchain. You can do, in fact, a big part of your health care could be done with data on the blockchain. Your social security, your welfare, all of these kind of insurance safety things are better done on the blockchain because the blockchain is fair, honest, incorruptible. It has hundreds of thousands of people watching over it, or computers watching over it, but people behind those computers. It's a much safer, more secure, and it keeps a perfect ledger. So I see a whole bunch of governments out there deciding, hey, we're going to just do the virtual part of governing, and we're going to cross border with it, so people can pick and choose which of us they want to govern.
That is such a wild concept, right? And
that's what gets me up in the morning. That's the thing.
So that's the future. That's where you see the world going. So you could get your health insurance from Switzerland and your Medicare or something from over here.
You bet.
Yeah, that's such a
put your pension on in South America, in Chile. Yeah. You can do and all of that, and each government then now has an interesting opportunity, and particularly the small governments who are kind of going, hey, what can we do? How do we attract the ICOs or the businesses or whatever? Some of the big governments are pushing them away. China pushing people away. Yeah. Japan is pulling people in.
Yeah. So I noticed there's a lot of people from China here at your blockchain event. Do you think they're looking to move to Japan or move their business or here?
Yeah. And some of these little countries are very aware of this because Switzerland was the center of all ICOs, right? And they had the tiger by the tail. And then they got all bureaucratic and heavy-handed. And then people said, well, let's do it in Singapore. And they did it in Singapore. And then Singapore started to get a little too bureaucratic. And then they say, well, let's do Cayman or Gibraltar or whatever. And so governments have to realize now that at least at the virtual level, they're in competition for us. And it makes a big difference. It switches the whole game. You know, way back when, I remember, I'm old enough to remember when the government, the U.S. government used to say, well, how do we make your life better? What can I do to improve your work life, your environment, your house, how do we make it better? And I haven't heard that for 25 years.
It's just that things feel like they're getting really heavy-handed here. And I know...
And everybody runs scared. And if think about the way, this is the way regulation works. If they regulate you and they say, okay, you can't use your right arm. Then they regulate you and say you can't use your left arm. And then you're kind of eating with your feet. Then they say you can't use your feet. And suddenly, you can't feed yourself. And so regulations are that kind of thing where these heavy-handed governments say, turn people in effect into slaves because they're trapped in this bad environment, as opposed to a free government that says, go out, make a life for yourself, see if we can help you, what can we do to make your life better? And those are the governments that win. That's China for the last 40 or 50 years under Deng Xiaoping. China said, he said, some of us will get rich first. We're going to open our markets. We're going to do all these things to make you free. China responded like beautifully, and the place grew, and they're one of the wealthy countries now. They were one of the poorest in the world, now they're one of the wealthy countries.
And now they're banning...
And then suddenly they got this guy in there who says, no, we're going to ban ICOs, and we're banning Bitcoin, and we're trying that. And he's going to lose everybody. And then Korea was pretty interesting. First, they followed China's suit, and they said, okay, we're going to ban it. And then they got 250,000 letters saying, hey, 40% of your population has a Bitcoin wallet. Do you really want to make them make all those people mad? And Korea backed off. And so I think that forced accountability or that forced competition is going to create better governance all around the world.
And here in the U.S., I mean, you've got the SEC calling crypto securities, the CFTC calling it commodities, and you know, as an investor and entrepreneur myself and an educator in the space, I'm going, I don't know what rules to follow or what I can and can't do. And
I know.
They're
tying that hand and they're tying that hand. Well, see, I look at these regulators as the way people might look at doctors. A doctor says he's an oncologist, so he says everything he sees is cancer. So, you know, you come in with a bad knee and he goes, well, it's got to be a cancer. You know, instead of like, better for whatever the bone doctors are. So, and if it's a bone doctor, all he sees is a bone problem. Or if he's a surgeon, all he does is want to cut. And if he's a pharma company, all he wants to do is feed you drugs. So the same thing with regulators. They say, oh, well, it's got to be a currency because I'm a currency regulator. Oh, no, it's got to be a security because I'm a security regulator. And, you know, it's got to be housing because I'm a housing regulator. They're all going to come up with things saying, hey, I need to justify why I'm here. But if they're really smart, they'll lay off. Because they laid off the internet and it became the darling of the American population. It transformed information, communications, entertainment, gaming, transformed all of these industries. Well, Bitcoin and blockchain has the potential to transform real estate, insurance, healthcare, government itself, finance, our business, venture capital. This could change everything. So if that's the case, you know, light touch.
Like, what advice would you give to somebody that was trying to do an ICO in the States? Or would you say, hey, don't do it here, go somewhere else?
Right now, you've got such a dark cloud hanging over you. It would be very difficult to do it here in the U.S. Although, you know, maybe what you do is you go and you try to apply for the SEC, because maybe then they're going to start relating a little better, understanding a little better how important it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think it's really important to educate people who want to buy coins that what they're buying is the future of society. It's like Kickstarter for societal transformation. That's the way I look at it. It's like you do a coin so that it grows a network and it becomes more of a powerful thing.
Yeah.
And I think that that's where you get you get all the juice. And when you say it's a Ponzi or whatever, I look and I say, well, I don't know, because there's an entrepreneur behind it, and what is that entrepreneur trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
And if that entrepreneur is trying to accomplish a society of whatever, then this is an opportunity for somebody to buy that coin and say, I want that society.
Yeah, voting with your capital.
And I assume the coin works, so it's a coin.
Yeah.
And people can do what they want.
Yeah.
I do want, you know, anybody who's going to buy coins to really think through who's behind it, who started it, you know, that kind of thing, because then they'll probably get behind the coins that'll make a bigger impact.
Yeah.
I don't believe that they're as appropriate to, like, just jump in because it's going up.
Yeah. And that's the mentality of a lot of people.
I'd be careful of that, because it's going to go up, it's going to go down. We are going to see big waves. When you see this kind of a big transformation of the world, you're going to see big ups and big downs, and the world's going to change in a big way.
It's interesting, every time the bubble pops, right, everybody freaks out, sells the bottom. Once it ramps back up, they want to chase and buy the highs, but over time...
Well, I want everybody out there to feel like, hey, I'm responsible. If it drops, it's on me.
Yeah.
If it goes up, it's on me.
Absolutely.
And so just feel like, don't feel like, hey, I'm doing it because of this. I mean, ideally, learn what the entrepreneur is trying to do. Maybe get to know the entrepreneur before you start buying that coin. And then, you know, if you're really a believer, and it's a movement, I think a movement is important.
Oh, yeah.
If
the
it
coins
has
with the
some
biggest
sort of a
communities.
movement, then it's important. So there's an eco coin, and so it's like for people who are into ecology, and then there's a coin for new forms of governance, and then there's a coin there's Bitcoin, the standard of everything, and then there's Ethereum, and then Tezos, which are both going after smart contracts. So they all will have their own personality. It's good to have a little good technology behind each one too, because then they will differentiate from all the other coins out there.
So how do you do that? I'm sure you get pitched every day. I know my inbox is flooded with ICO pitches. How do you decipher or filter?
Well, I have a good team. But we are. That's what I look for. I look for people who have great technology, a great drive, and those are the ones I get behind. And it's only a handful relative to the hundreds and hundreds of coins that we have been offered to participate.
Yeah, a lot of vaporware out there. Yeah.
Well, they call it. That's the old word for software that didn't do anything, but it's not that. They're all coins. I mean, I assume they all work. It's not that hard to build a coin. You can build a coin today if you just want it.
Well, the problem is the people that raise money and never actually build anything, right? And just disappear. I think that's what happened in Vietnam, was they took $600 million and just went poof, just left. So you got to make sure you get behind real good, honorable people who have a mission. If you feel that mission, then it's okay. Yeah, then I feel like it's worth doing. And I've only felt the mission a handful of times for all the hundreds and hundreds of opportunities I've seen. So, so buyer beware, caveat emptor. Yeah, I think the better we as a crypto community do at educating people the right way to invest and how to spot scams and how to spot real projects and real passion and real movements, that's going to allow us as smaller entrepreneurs freedom and hopefully keep the regulators off our backs.
Yeah, but I think that it's interesting since this isn't really a security. It's not really stock. It's not really a nonprofit. It's something else.
Yeah.
I feel like it's, and usually it is like 2 girls and a dog or 2 guys and a cat. It's not usually a lot of people, and they can't afford to do all that legal work required to be, you know, a security. That's $1 million, $10 million to be a security. All that legal work, that's not appropriate for these people who are just starting coins. I think it would be good if our government just said, here, it's a 1-page form.
Yeah.
Fill it out yourself. Then we're good.
Yeah. I know some guys are working on the SAFT, you know, special agreement for future tokens, and
Sure.
trying to help us kind of self-regulate. Hopefully something comes of that. I know CoinList is doing a great job with
it.
that.
Some other people are doing it. Yeah, so that's worth looking at.
Absolutely. Any final advice for any new entrepreneurs or investors in the space?
Well, as an entrepreneur, if you're going to create a coin, make sure that it has a real marketplace to it, a real reason to buy it, a real reason to sell it, so that it creates a marketplace. Not just at the ICO to raise money for you and your business, but why does a user want to use that coin? Why do they want to?
Right. Solves a real problem, right?
Yeah.
It's just a different way of
feel like, and do I want to be a part of a community? I think those are important things. And then as an investor, you're not investing. You're buying.
Yeah.
You're not investing in coins.
Right.
You are buying coins. And I recommend that you look at it just that way.
Right. You're not getting equity, but you're being a part of the movement.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Tim, thank you so much for everything you do. Great
Good.
book. Everybody get.
All right.
Startup Hero.
Get my book,
Yeah.
Startup Hero. I should show it. It's yellow with, I don't know if I have any copies here.
we got a ton of them downstairs.
Okay, good. Yeah, you can take a picture of it.
Thanks again, Tim.
Great, my pleasure. Awesome. Great. Here.